Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com with another player spotlight. This time we're talking about Brian Robinson returning for an extra senior season. But before we do, hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you more than you know, marching closer towards 50,000 subscribers. Brian Robinson, 6'1", 228 pounds, returning for his extra senior season. Now, let's explain that right now. Because of the COVID pandemic in 2020, the NCAA allowed seniors in 2020 the opportunity to return for an extra year in 2021, and that doesn't count against the scholarship limitation for any program in the NCAA. Therefore, players like Brian Robinson, Chris Owens, those guys who are already seniors, will be allowed to return in 2021. Brian Robinson, out of Hillcrest in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, came to the Crimson Tide as a four-star prospect, and he's seen plenty of time, as we'll talk about, playing in 52 games overall so far throughout 4 seasons. But let's start by looking at last season for Brian Robinson. Now, in 2020, 91 carries, 483 yards with 6 touchdowns, an average of 5.3 yards per carry. This is very important to notate. Against Ohio State in the national championship game, Brian Robinson ran for 10 carries for 69 yards. Najee Harris ran for 79 yards. And as you know, Najee Harris said the following.
You see what they were doing? They was blowing my eyes up.
Point is, Brian Robinson went against a very good Ohio State defense and was very productive. Now, Brian Robinson has been very productive since his arrival at the University of Alabama in 2017. He's played in a total of 52 games, 274 attempts for 1,361 yards with 15 touchdowns. His longest came in 2019 on a 37-yard attempt. Overall, Brian Robinson comes back as the most experienced back by far when you look at the Alabama running back room, right? You see all these stars, but you realize that most of these guys have only played a couple seasons. Brian Robinson has 52 games under his belt. So I think one of the biggest added benefits with Brian Robinson returning for 2021 is the experience factor. And I think that he's going to be able to show these younger running backs what it takes to be great, right? Brian Robinson has been a part of 2 national championship teams. He's played actually in 3 national titles, so he can translate that experience to these younger running backs. Now, what else to expect in 2021 for Brian Robinson? We already talked about the experience. I think that's going to be a monumental factor. But is he going to be the featured back this season? I know it seems obvious. He has the experience. He has the talent. But when you look to that running back room, could it be a rotation of running backs instead of one featured back like we saw in 2020 with Najee Harris? I think with Brian Robinson, if Alabama really needs to lean on a back to carry the ball 20, 25 times, Brian Robinson could be that guy. Now, I know that's not how the offense operates anymore, but Brian Robinson has the body type. And he has the experience. He's been durable during his time at Alabama, and he hangs on to the football. So I think all those attributes lead to us feeling that he could be the featured back. There's going to be some heat coming up from Kellen Robinson. We just talked about him. Another guy that's really emerging into the spring season. You also have Trey Sanders, Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, Kyle Edwards, and new addition Kamar Wheaton. It's a stacked running backfield, as it is every single year at Alabama. I also asked this question going into the 2021 season for Brian Robinson. How well does he catch the football? It's an interesting question because Najee Harris was able to really add a different element to Alabama's overall offense in 2020 because of his ability to catch the football. Najee Harris, I don't know if you know this, but he caught 43 passes last season. He was one of Alabama's top receivers. Now, does Brian Robinson have that ability? Are we going to see that same offensive approach with Bill O'Brien? I guess those questions will be answered during springtime and once we get into the season. But when you look to the running back room, who has the best hands, right? So during the springtime, I'm definitely watching how Bill O'Brien uses this running back room, the running back rotation, and to see if Brian Robinson can catch the football out of the backfield during check down routes, swing routes, whatever the offense brings. Now, when we look to the scouting report for Brian Robinson, I think you're going to be really excited. You probably already know Brian Robinson, what he brings to the table, being that he's been here since 2017. But I think overall, he's a productive ball carrier who definitely can be the go-to guy. I think if Alabama, looks to him and puts him as that senior starter, which I feel they're going to, he can certainly thrive being that number one back. Absolutely. One thing that I really like about Brian Robinson, he has shown that he can score regularly when he's given goal line looks. Alabama, when they went into some heavy down and distance plays from inside the goal line, Brian Robinson has been able to be that guy because he's a power type back that can follow the fullback, follow a big tackle into the end zone, and he's tough to bring down. We saw his power. We saw some good speed bursts against Ohio State. I think he packs a punch with his physique, right? I mean, 230 pounds, he's definitely a load to bring down. That's SEC. That's a bigger style running back. And that's kind of what Alabama's been, in the running back room for the last several years, right? I mean, some of these newer running backs that are added to the rotation, I'm sure they're going to add on some bulk. But Brian Robinson is already conditioned, already has the weight that you need to compete every single play in the SEC. He's a very strong and powerful tailback that can contribute for Alabama on every single down. And I think that, one of the question marks that I have about Brian Robinson is if he's going to be able to be explosive enough to pile up chunk yards, right? First contact, how is he going to move in open space? We haven't had too many examples of where Brian Robinson just gets let go and he has to make a defender miss, right? It's kind of like we see him in these goal line situations or, maybe Najee Harris came out in 2020 and he goes in for some short yardage situations. But other than that, I want to see if Brian Robinson can make people miss. How is he going to perform in the open field? You can't compare running backs because you look to Najee Harris and you're like, oh, if he doesn't hurdle a defender, then, that's not what you want. But Brian Robinson is going to bring, I think, different elements to the backfield. And I think you're going to be really happy with Brian Robinson going into 2021. Most importantly, the two biggest things to remember are he's got the experience, he's got the size, he's got the leadership, and overall, I mean, coming into this 2021 season, I think with Alabama's missing parts, right? You lose some significant pieces on the offensive line. You lose wide receivers. You lose your quarterback. You lose the Doak Walker Award winner, Najee Harris. But when you have an experienced back coming back like Brian Robinson, he brings back leadership and experience, which is very, very important. And I think that's going to translate very well to this younger running back room. Let me know what you think about Brian Robinson going into 2021. How many yards do you think he'll rush for? Do you think he'll break the 1,000-yard mark in 2021? Do you think there'll be somewhat of a rotation between backs going into this season under new offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien? Definitely want to hear from you inside the comment box. Hey, thank you very much for watching. Please hit the thumbs up. Remember to subscribe for more Alabama football coverage. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. We'll catch you soon on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.